Welcome to the SACNIS webinar on balancing work, family, and life. My name is Eric Curiel, and I'm the SACNIS National Chapters Manager, and I have the honor to be the moderator for today's webinar. This webinar is part of our Insights to Success series. In this series, our goal is to highlight and amplify the voices of our Linton Poudry SACNIS Leadership Institute alumni. Today, I will be talking to our guests, Kiki and Anitza, about how they balance their work life, family. So I invite you to engage with us by submitting questions and chatting with us. But before we get started, before we get started, I want to say welcome to all of you that are new to SACNIS. We are an inclusive organization dedicated to achieving true diversity in STEM, where the field reflects the demographics of our country's population. As the nation's largest multicultural and multidisciplinary STEM diversity organization, SACNIS creates a space where all members, partners, staff feel they belong and can embrace and celebrate their intersectionality identities. If you have not yet joined us, I invite you to become a member today at membership.sacnis.org. So a few housekeeping items. Please note that you may submit your questions via the Q&A feature, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. We'll also have the chat feature available, so if you want to submit questions there, please feel free to do so. And then at the end of the webinar, I ask you to please complete a brief survey that will help us improve our programming for our future webinars. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our two outstanding panelists we have today. Dr. Lekelia Jenkins. Kiki is an associate professor at Arizona State University in the School for the Future of Innovation in Society and was named the AAAS IFTHN Ambassador and appointed to the National Academies of Science Ocean Studies Board. A Meyerhoff Scholar and UNCF Merck Fellow, she graduated with a bachelor's in biology and dance major from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. As a National Science Foundation Graduate Fellow, she received her PhD from Duke University by pioneering a new field of study into the invention and adoption of marine conservation technology. Later, she lobbied and gained the support of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to host its first ever AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellows. As a postdoctoral scholar at the University of Washington, she was supported by the Ford Foundation Diversity Postdoctoral Fellowship and the David H. Smith Conservation Research Fellowship. And our second guest, Dr. Anitza San Miguel. Anitza is a Dean of Science at Valencia College in Orlando, Florida. She serves as a science professor and dean at institutions in Virginia and Florida. Anitza also worked in the National Institutes of Health and the U.S. Patents and Trademark Office. She earned her bachelor's degree in biology from the University of Puerto Rico, master's degree in biotechnology from Johns Hopkins University, and doctorate from Higher Education Administration from George Washington University. Anitza is a leader in the field of post-secondary education and personal growth and development, and a leader in her community. Because of her passion to add value to people and help them achieve their goals and dreams, she is also a certified coach and speaker and trainer on the John Maxwell team. With that said, I want to thank our guests here today, and I'll let them share their journey with you all. Kiki, we can start with you first.
So I want to start by saying that balancing work, family, and life is for everyone. We often can get in a trap that we think that, oh, well, if I don't have a partner or if I don't have kids, then this isn't for me and this isn't relevant for me. And I remember once attending a work-life balance panel, and one of the panelists was a single woman. She said, this is for me too, because, well, my preference is not to be single and I want to have time to date. And there were priorities that she had for her life. And she gave herself permission to put value on those things. And she had to fight for it in her department, because they thought, well, you're the one without kids, so you get all the scut work. You get all the late nights. You get all the things that other people don't have the space to deal with. And undervaluing that we can define family and life however that we want and need to. And so I want everyone who's here, you've elected to be here for a reason, to recognize that whatever your family, your life, your work situation may be, this is for you. So my first question to you all is, who is your family? And I'd like you to use the chat feature to type for us who your family is. If you don't want to share it for the world to see, feel free to just write it down. And I'm going to give us a moment to do that. It's okay, go ahead and be brave. So, wife and 2 daughters, parents, siblings, friends, boyfriends, hubby and 4 boys. Family lives in Australia, I don't see them now. Hubby and dog, son, husband, 2 dogs. Thank you for that. Feel free to keep sharing. Let's see if I can get my slide to advance. So this is my family, clearly at Christmas. My brothers, my mother, my uncle, my nephew is there. But these are also my family as well. My very good friend, Sarah Maxwell, who I call my science soulmate. We say that without each other, we would not be where we are in our careers. And my best friend and dance partner, Ben Sodenkamp. And I highlight these people because one set of people may be my biological family, but the other people are just as much my family. And as scientists, many of us have had to travel from the place where we were born to new jobs, and we have to establish family. And so I think it's important to recognize that we are allowed to choose who our family is. And in being explicit about who our family is, we can begin to shape the climate around us to say, hey, recognize my chosen family. There are limits to that. Family medical leave may push back if I say, hey, my friend Sarah's having a hard time, or my friend Sarah's having a baby. I need to go there and be with her and support her. However, I would say the more that we own, that we can define who our family is, perhaps even those legal structures may change. Imagine a world that when you start a job, you get to declare who your family is for being considered for family medical leave or any other type of family leave that's needed. And furthermore, I would say some of you mentioned pets. Pets can be family. As you interact and engage with folks, if someone's cat just died, if you would normally send someone a card, a sympathy card, if their sibling had passed, for example, do you do that same thing for their pet if you know that their pet was meaningful? And can we do that to start promoting a culture that is more inclusive of what family is? So I'm going to ask again, thinking very broadly about what being is family for you. If you want to redefine what you wrote down, take a moment and feel free to do that. Who is your family? The next question I'm going to ask you is, what gives you life? So the title of this talk talks about work, life, and family. And a lot of times the life gets coded as, well, I pick up the kids from soccer, I go grocery shopping and clean the house, you know, all the things you need to do to live. But the things you need to do to live are not necessarily the things that give you life. So I'm going to have us do an exercise here. Thank you. I see someone saying they would add more of their best friends as part of their family. There's a book called Designing Your Life that was really pivotal for me. I did it as a retreat with Sarah Maxwell, my science soulmate. And to be honest, I haven't even read the book. I didn't have time. I read the summaries at the end of the chapters and did the exercises. So this is something that I think anyone, no matter how busy, can do this. One of the activities they had us do was to review the last few weeks of our life and decode them around certain things. And I'm going to ask you to do one aspect of this. So pull open your Google Calendar, your Outlook calendar, your scheduler, and look at those activities and find the things that both held your interest and energized you. I know COVID has kind of thrown a kink in the works. Our lives aren't the way they normally are. So if you want to flip back to pre-COVID to do this activity, feel free. And really think about what energizing is, because there can be things that are very interesting to us that we're passionate about, but at the end of engaging with those things, they leave us drained, even if we value them and think that they're important. I'm not focusing on those things. I'm focusing on the things that really boost you. And again, I'd ask you to write out those activities that both interest and engage you. Write on your paper. If you're brave enough, I won't put code as brave enough. If you feel like it would be helpful for you to share it in the chat and put it out there, maybe inspire other people, or just help us get to know you more, write it in the chat right now. Spending time in nature. Yes, absolutely. Spending time with loved ones, hiking, grabbing coffee, watching a movie, going to my cycling class, or at least used to. Working on a book with a friend. Walking with your cousin, camping, hiking, walking the dog. Virtual game night, digging for fossils, wonderful, travel, okay. So dancing, a person after my own heart, because what gives me life is dancing. Until COVID, I co-owned a Brazilian Zouk dance school. And so teaching, competing, performing, even though it took a lot of time, I called it my Zouk baby because it took the amount of time of that, was energizing for me. And I think you can see that in the pictures and the community that came around this. And so when I did this exercise through the book Designing Your Life, I, at the time, thought, they make you answer questions like, what would you do if you couldn't do what you're doing now? And I thought briefly, own a dance school, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that for various reasons. I've taught at dance schools. And it led me to think about something else, which was I would live in Guatemala and study Spanish. And they told me that I didn't have to think about anything practical. So I was like, okay, I won't think about how that's not a job and that doesn't make any money for me. But as I explored that more, I realized, hey, I'm a professor on a 9-month contract. There is a way for me to go and spend a lot of time in Guatemala studying Spanish. And quite frankly, if I ever wanted to retire early, I could make that happen. I could teach some dance classes on the side. I could do body work in Antigua. Like, there's ways to make this happen. And I transformed my life so that I spend my summers in Antigua, Guatemala, living with my favorite host family and studying Spanish, because I found a way to make this thing that energized me a substantial part of my life. I gave myself permission to do that. Okay. So I encourage you to dig into that book if you want to expound on these things that give you life, to make them a consistent part of what you do. So the next thing I would say is do holistic planning. So I don't know if we can see the participant screen, but if any of you engage in any type of planning for life, work, individual development plan, leadership planning, whatever, use your hands up feature and just throw up a hand. Think you might be able to do that. Yep, I'm seeing them coming. We have 8, 9, 10, 13, 15, 17. Okay, we're over 50% of us are engaging in some type of planning. Leave your hand up if you're just, because we're going to do another thing. Don't unclick it. when you do your planning, is it just for work, or do you actually include yourself, your full life, your full people? So if your planning is just for work, unclick your hand. If your planning involves yourself, your whole self, your family, your community, then leave it clicked. Going down a little bit, we're down to 18. Okay, this is good. This makes me happy. So it looks like most of you who engage in planning are doing it very holistically. And for those of you who don't, let's talk about, who don't plan right now, that's not a bad thing. Let's talk about how you might want to plan, because so many things that are out there that are about planning, plan your semester, whatever, it's about work. And the chapter you're going to write, or the article you're working on, or the data you're going to analyze, the proposal you're going to put in. When I write my yearly plan, I sit down with the people that are important to me. So if I were in a relationship, I would sit down with that person and say, okay, what is it that you need to know that I value this relationship and feel fulfilled in this relationship? And it's very specific, okay? At least one meal together a week where you sit down and talk. Once a quarter that we go off for a long weekend vacation to discover someplace new. That is coded into my plan as I'm thinking about all the things that work and church and leading and teaching and dance school are going to be requiring of me. I prioritize them all in that process. Okay, and another activity. I have a lot of activities for you all. So this is not going to be a full planning. It's going to be a small kind of weekly planning activity you can do to get you started thinking about holistic planning. I would like you to list 5 or 10 roles that you fill in life. So you might say, I'm a professor, I'm a dean, I'm a mother, I am a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a best friend, I'm a deacon in my church, I'm a Boy Scout leader, I'm a Girl Scout leader. Write 5 or 10 of those roles down. Again, feel free to put them in the chat if you'd like. We have student, daughter, employee, friend, dog mom, sister, postdoc, veterinarian, father, husband. Yes. Okay. Cook, caregiver. Nice. Intern. So one of the things that's going to help us to feel good about fulfilling roles and not feel guilty like we're neglecting something is to do something towards each of those roles consistently. Sometimes we get into this mindset of like, okay, to be a good parent, I have to do something grand. I have to take my kids to Disney World. And you try to make space for a grand family vacation. And sometimes that's just not doable. And it's not doable consistently. But what if you said this week, I'm going to take my heart-shaped Post-it notepad and write on it, you're the most awesome kid, love, world's most awesome dad, heart, heart, high five, and stick it in their lunch bag. So what I'd like you to do is to think of one doable thing that you can do next week within each of those roles as a way of serving that role, serving the people who are served through that role that's small and doable. And then you can look back at that week and say, you know what? I haven't neglected any of the roles that are important to me. I've done something for them. So write those things down. Think about that. I don't have tons of time. I'm almost at the end of my time. But if someone has 1 or 2 things they want to share that they're going to do in relation to one of their roles, feel free to put that in the chat. Water fight, like it. Play with the cat, did a puzzle with the boyfriend, FaceTime with parents and siblings. Yeah, one of my favorite things is when I'm in the car, I have a thing where I just try to call my friends, and we catch each other, we do, and we have 10 minutes of just like hearing each other's voice. And we just try each other till we get each other. That's wonderful. So I'm gonna end with this. if you might have noticed, did not really talk about work at all. Why is that? Because the scale is stacked with work. Work has got you on lock. Work tells you what you need to do to get tenure, what you need to get promotion, what you need to do to get a raise. You don't have to think about work. And a lot of times we think that the goal here is balancing. I think this is gaslighting. This is not the goal. And I love this particular picture because you play Scrabble and you add up the points. Work is valued as more than life. And that's what the whole zeitgeist, the whole world tells us, is that work is worth more than your life. And because it's worth more than your life, if you manage the magic trick of getting them balanced, which is gaslighting, then you have done it. You've arrived. I would say to you that the goal is not this either. The goal is this. Your life, your family, the things that fill you, the things that fulfill you are more important than work any day, all day long. And it should be heavier and have more value. But because of the way the system is stacked and because of the gaslighting all around us, which everyone believes, the only way that we're going to achieve this is if we put our finger on the scale and we focus and we say, life matters. And so I'll end you with that. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kiki. That was very excellent. And thank you, everybody who participated in the chat during that. At this point, turn it over to Anitza.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiki. Great presentation. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Anitza, Dr. Anitza San Miguel. I'm very excited to be here sharing my story with the SACNAS community and the STEM community in general. In the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to share with you my story of balancing work, family, and life. And actually what I'm gonna share, I'll be sharing about harmony, not about balance. How to achieve that harmony in work, family, and life. And you're probably wondering, well, isn't this about finding balance between work, family, and life? And for me, I discovered that it's about harmony. And I'm gonna tell you why. So last year, I began my intentional growth journey. For years, I had focused on my career. I'm also a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt. So many hats, like many of you carry a lot of hats. But in that process, I strived to find that balance, right? I just trying to find the balance between the work and the family and the life, and where do I put my energy, and where does my focus goes. But that reality was that it was impossible. It was impossible for me to reach balance because balance needed equal parts, right, to achieve that balance. And something along the way got missed. Something along the way I was not able to fulfill or slip through the cracks. So when I started my intentional growth journey, that's where I strive for. I strive for finding harmony. And what is harmony? I try to find myself where I choose to be happy. It's my choice what I decide to do. And not only that, I also learned to truly be present in the moment, because I can try to find that balance. And to be honest, yes, I could try to find it. But when I found harmony, I learned to be truly present in a moment where if I was focusing on 8 hours of work, once I came home, I had to make sure that I was fully present at home, that I was fully present for my daughter, what she needed, for my husband. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit in terms of my journey as I've gone through, in case you were wondering, why harmony instead of balance. So growing up in Puerto Rico to parents who did not attend college, I did not have a lot of professional scientists to look up to, but knew that it was my grand search for meaning, trying to find that. I knew from early on, initially, I wanted to be a neuroscientist. That was what I said, what I wanted to do. But as I started my journey in my bachelor's degree in biology, I discovered that there was more. I discovered things, and I had mentors along the way who guided me and showed me different options out there. So I pursued my bachelor's degree in biology from the University of Puerto Rico. And then I accepted an internship at the National Institute of Health and decided to continue my education and my passion for science and receive a master's degree in biotechnology from Johns Hopkins University. During that time, I had moved from Puerto Rico, moved to Maryland by myself, trying to make new friends, new environment, new weather. You go from the cold to the hot. And I remember someone asked me at a bus station, was waiting outside the bus, I was shivering, and the person asked me, where are you from? And she said, I told her I'm from Puerto Rico, and she's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm asking the same question right now because it's freezing and I'm here waiting for this bus. So again, things just happen. And throughout that time, I work at different areas and over at the NIH, different positions as a student, contractor, further employee. And then during that time, my mentor has said, you're here, why don't you go ahead and do a master's degree here in the area? And I said, sure, I'll go for it. Hence, I ended up at the Johns Hopkins University doing a master's degree in biotechnology. And during that time, I met my husband, I got married, and that's when the fun begins. Okay? And I say that jokingly because, as a single person, I had a lot of flexibility doing here, but then, I got married and I had to think about someone else in place. So I got married during that same year. I started my doctoral degree program, higher education administration at George Washington University. And my husband was very supportive along the way. I was part of a cohort program. And during that time, I learned a lot, but I had to adjust. I had to adjust my scientist mind to an educator mind. I was the only scientist in my group. And a lot of my cohort were mainly already in education. So during that time, I learned a lot. My husband had to travel a lot from work, and I had the opportunity to travel with him. And one of my trips was in the midst of my doctoral program. He got the opportunity to go to Bogota, Colombia. And I'm like, hey, I'm in. I haven't been there. I'm there with you. I'm packing my stuff. And when I looked at my calendar, I had a statistics test on a Saturday. And I'm like, okay, I can't miss this opportunity to go to Bogota and travel. I got tests. I got things to turn in and papers. They're traveling with me. So I packed my books. I packed everything with me. You're probably wondering, did you do anything while you were there? I did attempt to open the book at some point, but really, I enjoyed my time when I was there for a week. I did have a layover at Miami, the Miami airport, for 4 hours. And that's when I studied for my test, I prepared, I did any assignments. 4 hours, you could do a lot when you're truly focused on that. And that's what I did. Next day, I went in, took the test, and I was ready for that. So, trying, and I'm remembering one of the questions that I know previously we got was trying to see, if you could do all different things, and you can, it's a matter of where you're going to put your focus on. And then through that time, I know when I was doing my doctorate degree program, by then I had moved to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and I enjoyed doing what I did there, but I found myself that I needed more interact. And I had what was between my dissertation and work. Work was very demanding. I remember coming home one day, basically with a panic attack and shivering, and my husband said, you got to quit your job. Because it came to the point of either it's my dissertation, which I've already invested 2 years in my doctoral program, or my job. And he was very supportive and said, we're doing well. Let's go ahead, quit your job, focus on your program, and that's what I did through that time. So again, just trying to find that harmony in place. I got my doctoral degree program, and then I got pregnant. So then it was like defense, taking care of a child. And I remember 2 days after my daughter was born, I received IRB approval for my project. And a month later, I was conducting my interviews. I was very determined that I was not going to prolong, that I knew that I wanted to finish my program in 4 years. And that's what I did. And I told my dissertation chair, we better get this moving, because if not, you are going to be the one taking me to the hospital when my daughter is about to born. I don't think you want that. But I say it jokingly because that, again, trying to keep that focus and keep things moving. And I did, and I defended my dissertation. Adding to that, during that time, my husband had an opportunity to go to Hawaii to teach a class there, and he's a civil engineer. And again, what did I take with me? Any guesses out there? Because I had to defend my dissertation around that time. I took all my dissertation papers with me. And my husband is like, Anitza, you know this right and wrong. You've been working on that already for a year, writing and reviews and all that. I'm like, nope, I gotta be prepared. So I took everything with me. I did review a couple of things while I was in the trip. And then I think it was 2 or 3 later after I arrived, I defended my dissertation successfully. Again, trying to do all different things, taking care of my daughter was born. She was 1.5 years then. So it's been a journey where I've gotten in different areas. And one thing I've learned throughout, and actually I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, I spent around 19 years in the DC, Maryland area, and then just moved to the Orlando area 4 years ago. I'm currently serving as Dean of Science. Back in Virginia, I was a full faculty, biology faculty, interim dean, assistant dean, where I learned a lot as well. Had sometimes, my daughter by then was 3, and I remember one time where she asked me, I was fearlessly working on my computer, getting things done. It was already late, 7, 8 or so, and my daughter came up to me and she's like, Mom, are you doing work? And it hit me, it suddenly hit me that I was home, my body was there, but I was not present with her. And that's when I then closed my laptop and said, I need to change. There's things need to be changed. I can't just focus on work. And when that experience happened, I've been more intentional of, when I'm home. And I'm, there's times there where I put her to sleep. And after I put her to sleep, I might have gone to the computer and do a couple of things. But again, just being present in that moment, for me, that's one of the things that I have learned throughout my journey. So why I share all this is because throughout my career, personal and professional life, I've done a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that are probably asking, can I do this? Can I do that? How do I do this? How do I find that balance? How do I find that harmony? Well, I'm going to tell you, let the how reveal itself. There's the only person you can control is yourself. You cannot control the circumstances. You cannot control things that are happening. Let the how reveal yourself. Try to have a plan. You have a goal, a vision. Your goal might be to finish your PhD, to get tenure. Focus. Look ask yourself, what's that one thing that I need to do so that by doing that one thing, everything else is easy or unnecessary. Look at one thing. Your goal is going to be there. Let it be if it's tenure, your PhD program. Start doing small steps to get there. Throughout that time then, just trying to find the harmony that when you're at work, and when you get home, be present, be there. now that we're in the virtual, remote environment, managing, having, kids at home and trying to find, you're working remotely and perhaps teaching a class. And then the kids now are starting perhaps remotely. Some of them, depending every family situation. I know my daughter will be starting virtual. And then it's trying to find that balance of making sure she's focused. She's 11 years old, so that she's focused doing her schoolwork, but also myself continuing to my career, my obligations as well. And how do we separate what's home, what's work, and what's life in place? So that in and of itself, it's a journey for us to do, for us to find that harmony. It's something that I strive for every day. That I'm perfect, I'm not. There's days that I don't find that harmony. It's hard. I focus more on one thing of the other. But I think at the end of the day, what I do is ask, and it's something that I invite you to perhaps write it down, is to ask yourself at the end of the day, what have I learned? What have I learned of all these experiences? What have I learned? Such that then once you know what you've learned, your next question should be, what can I do differently tomorrow? What can I do differently tomorrow? For me, those have been two key questions, especially during this time of transition, of where went from face-to-face one day, and next day we're in the remote world, and we're trying to juggle 20 things at the same. I mean, we're already juggling things. We're juggling more, and we're managing teams through Zoom, doing so many things. So I invite you just to think about that. Think about your journey. Think about where you are now and where do you want to be? What's that one thing you want to focus? Where are you going to find that harmony in place? And at the end of the day, let the how reveal itself. Don't worry about, how are you going to do X thing? How are you going to do the other one? Have a plan. Yes, you need to have some plan, and there's planning involved. But you can't do step 3 and 4 if you haven't done step 1, or actually step 0. So to end, I just want to just re-emphasize and say, let the how reveal itself. I know that for me has been very powerful, and I've learned to just let the how reveal itself. So thank you, everyone, and open to any questions.
Thank you, Anitza. That was really great to hear about finding the harmony rather than the balance. So at this point, we want to open it up to our Q&A. Yeah, so I want to remind our attendees that we'll be accepting questions for our panelists now. So please feel free to use the Q&A feature to submit those questions. In the meantime, I do have a few questions that were submitted ahead of time. So let's see, Kiki, you talked about prioritizing life, right? Rather than kind of the old thinking of you have to balance work and life. And Anitza, I appreciate, again, you providing us that perspective of harmony. So do you have set routines to help you either decide when you want to prioritize life over work, or finding that harmony that can help some of our attendees kind of know, like once they identify what their goal is and they want to go in that route, kind of routines to help them kind of actually move towards that?
Yeah, so when I first started doing this was in graduate school, and I started with the 4x4 square of important, not important, urgent, not urgent. And I plugged everything into that. And at that point in my life, I was just still focused largely on work in graduate school, but it helped me to see that there's a lot of things that the world was telling me, this is urgent, you must do this. And it was just not urgent, or it was urgent, but it was unimportant. And so that moved further down my priority list. And I became okay with not doing certain things. that the system either rewarded, neither did the system stop if I stopped doing those things. On the flip side, I also said, I've been indoctrinated to believe that as a good scientist, I'm working long hours and I should have a sofa in my office for when I need to take a nap and keep going. And that's ridiculous. So my goal is a 40-hour work week. That's humane. I don't work on the weekends. The exception may be some really amazing grant proposal that I really, really want. I'm actually excited to be doing it, and it's due on Monday. But I don't work on the weekends. I don't allow my work to be on my phone. I don't allow any type of notifications. You will not find me operating on Slack, because Slack will not send emails. They want to send alerts to your phone. And I do not allow work to pop up at will whenever it wants in my atmosphere. I control when I engage it. So those are just a few of the things that I do.
Yeah, and I know for me, one of the things that have worked is I try to have a routine where I work up early. And when I say early, meaning 5:30-ish, this is Easter time, 6 o'clock, where then I can have my devotional, go for a walk, do a 30-minute exercise to kind of have that me time in place and connect. I know for me, connection with source, spirit, God, whatever you want to, you call it. But for me, having that spiritual connection is very helpful, because I when things are going haywire, I'm like, why is all these things happen? It suddenly clicks that I'm not connected, that I've lost that connection. So having my devotional time in the morning, let it be a few minutes, even could be on an app, just trying to have that connection, and then going either for a 30-minute walk, doing exercise, 30-minute exercise. I find that time for myself, and then I start my morning routine for work, getting ready, scanning pretty much. I know emails, I know for all of you probably the same, can be very daunting. So I scan them, and there's things that I can answer quickly, I do. And then if it takes a little bit more, I have a pending folder where I start moving things. And then that's then where I focus in on those to see, and like Kiki was saying, prioritize. There's things that are urgent that I need to make sure that they get done today. And there's other ones that can wait a little bit, and that I need to gather some of my thoughts, gather some information before I respond to that. So it's just having prioritizing, seeing what's important. And there's times, now that my daughter is here, I tell her, there was one day that she said, she came in and almost crying because she couldn't do an assignment. And I asked her, but why did you, come to the room and ask me? And she's like, well, because you were in a meeting. And I told her, you can knock my door, come in, kind of say, hi, I'm here. And I can interrupt. Just interrupt me. I mute myself, I put it in, and need to focus, because you also have that attention. So it's just trying to find that priority. And there are things that actually can wait. We think they're critical, but they can wait.
Thank you. Another question we have here is, especially now with COVID changing a lot of things, and now people working virtually, is how do you find kind of those boundaries so that you're not always stuck? I think for a lot of us is being stuck at home, which is now our office and our living space. So how do you kind of navigate now with this situation?
Yes, I know for me, just again, trying to find some schedule. In my case, I have an 11-year-old daughter. I just have one. So it might be a little bit easier, when you have either 2 or 3 kids that might be at different levels, middle, elementary or pre-K, so on and so forth. But it's just trying to have a schedule for her when she wakes up, have breakfast, so that perhaps I might start my work a little bit early, or we might start together, meaning that, I get up, get ready, get all things settled, and then I wake her up, get her ready, and make sure she's in front of the computer by, let's say, 9 o'clock. That's when she starts here. And then checking in with her every so often, and knowing, and I think also a conversation, I know with my supervisor, just letting them know, look, I'm also trying to manage that as well with her. And when I try to end the day at a reasonable time, you know, and again, there's things that happen, you know, something might pop up at 5 p.m. That I might have to extend a little bit, but it might be then just extending and then wrapping that up and then just going back to her and being intentional. I think, and the question was, you know, sleep before 2 a.m. Sleep is critical if we want to function properly, if we want to be present. I mean, I know for me, anything beyond midnight, after that, next day, yes, I'm functioning, but I'm not fully there. So I try my best, and it's not easy. I'm not saying it's hard, because I've gone through that, but it's just trying to be intentional of, you know, let me try to go to bed by X time, you know, make sure the kids are taken care of, they fed, they're, you know, have their wash and bedtime story, whatever it is, and have them. And if you need to do something, you do it. Or it might be something that, again, might not be something that you need to answer or complete immediately, that then perhaps, you know, going to bed at 11 or even 10 or so might be better, because then instead of going to bed at 2, you might be able to wake up at 5 and kind of have that early morning by yourself to finish any tasks that you might do. So I know that's kind of what has worked for me. I think it's finding that what works. When COVID started, I moved to 3 different places within the house. I started in the kitchen for a week. That did not work. From the kitchen, I moved to the loft area. That didn't move, because it was my husband and my daughter and everyone. And my husband's like, I was here first because I've been working from home for over, you know, X number of years. And then finally, I'm like, the guest room. No one is coming to visit us. I have a desk and I have everything there. So we rearranged the guest room, and this is my place, my happy place now, and my office, and kind of, but it's what works, you know, just finding what works for you.
Thank you. Another question we have is, if you work for somebody who doesn't prioritize you kind of wanting to value your life activities over your work, like what advice would you provide that person to maybe help approach their boss, or kind of help them through that situation?
So that's a very real reality. Particularly we see some generational differences there, because this is not an incorrect stereotype to say that the values of baby boomers, the work that they came into, said that work is priority, companies still had loyalty. Then you have Gen Xers, which I'm one, that said, okay, I'll figure out how to do my work, but I'm going to do it on my own terms, but I'm going to get the work done. But you just can't prescribe to me how I'm going to do it. And then we're seeing the millennials that are shaping this in an even new way. What I would say, particularly in these intergenerational workplaces, is that conversation is key. Putting your values out there. The more that people hear, my values include not just my husband or my kids, but it includes my church, or it includes my karate group. That shifts the values. Gen Xers started shifting values in this way. And that's why, and part of why I call Gen X, people are like, what are you doing? And what do you believe in? And what are you working for? You're just a big fat X. And it came out, it's like, no, we're just defining our community. So speak it. You might not see immediate change, but what might happen is you're probably not the only one who's saying, this isn't working for me. And one person who starts speaking can get other voices into the space. Will this lead to radical change? Not necessarily, particularly if you have an autocratic, a very top-down system. But through the next hire, the next boss, they might say, hey, our values have shifted. We need someone who values different ways of looking at life and family. And that then becomes part of the call. So it can be immediate, but you also may need to think about the long game.
Yeah, and I'm kicking right on there. You know, it's the conversation. It's having that conversation. And I know for me, and I've been at times, even with my team just recently, I was very vulnerable. And I said, look, guys, I taking tomorrow off. It was on a Thursday. We were in a meeting. I said, I'm taking tomorrow off. I need time to recharge. It is. If you need me, send me an email by 5 p.m. Can't guarantee I'm going to answer that. If not, the admin assistant will help you with that. If not, Monday, and if it's real emergency, you know where to get me. But I think it's, for me, and I, as a supervisor myself, then I found some of my faculty sharing, like, thank you. In the spirit of vulnerability, this is what I'm going to share with you. I also need some time to connect. And sometimes I think when we're vulnerable, we're afraid of being vulnerable and saying, you know, I need to run and take my kid to a doctor's appointment, or, you know, I'm going to end this by 5 because I want to make sure I get to my class, you know, by exercise or whatever class at X time. It's just, and as Kiki was saying, you know, as you bring that up and share it, then others are gonna, you know, it's not gonna be that you're gonna let your job out there. No, it's just like, no, this is meaningful. This is, I value this, and I need this also because you need to recharge as well.
Thank you both. Our next question is, were there times you felt stuck or like you had to choose between your career goals and prioritizing family or life? And if so, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, well, I shared in my story the time where I was juggling a full-time job that was very demanding, you know, because I remember I had to, it was quality and quantity. There was a number of cases that I needed to review, but at the same time, as I'm reviewing and submitting them, I got to make sure there's quality behind this, quantity and quality in place, and doing, and you know, I think at that time I've been doing my qualifying exams, and you know, all the coursework for my doctoral program was done. I was just on the exams, getting things started, and those two worlds clashed, and I had to make the decision, and it had started to affect my health. Hence, when I came home with a panic attack. Back then I didn't know I was having a panic attack. And I remember my husband giving me a huge hug. It's like, it's gonna be okay. Quit your job, granted. And I know not everyone can do that. Everyone's circumstances is different. But I had to decide at that point between my full-time job and my dissertation and my doctoral degree. And for me, I had invested already 2 years in coursework. I had invested money financially. There's a lot of things there that, you know, I decided to go that route. And it was a hard decision, but I had to do it for my own health, for my own, the health of my marriage as well.
I'm gonna say yes to all that you can quit that thing. That is okay. And I've done it multiple times. I was like, this institution will not let me choose life. Why would I want to be in a place that will not let me choose to live? And I think I just want to touch on this last thing that's popped up in the chat. It's the same thing. Like, what if you're in this place that doesn't value this perspective and says, he tries to use it against you? I've been in places like that. But the thing is, my work always gets done. And my work is on point. And so when I'm sitting there with someone who's telling me that something like is not okay, like, well, you're not in your office enough. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Is there something that isn't done? They can't find a thing because it's airtight. Now, it's a shame that my stuff has to be airtight because I know that because I'm a woman, because I'm Black, because I choose life, they're going to try to dig it apart. And so while their stuff is full of holes, there's a leaky bucket, mine is sealed like Fort Knox. It's a shame that it has to be that way. And I think there's a way to exist where it doesn't. But every time I turn it to, oh, what's the problem? Where's your evidence? I certainly would love to address that. Could you tell me? Oh, you think I don't talk to my students? Are there some concerns for my students? My students are graduating on time. In fact, in front of the departmental average. Like, and when I make it about substance, as opposed to these dedicated, hard-working, what does that mean? Their argument falls apart. And one of the last thing I'll say is I've been in places where they keep shifting, they keep trying to find some new word, and my friends have said to me, Kiki, this is microaggression, and they're gonna keep changing the scales on you until they have you because they're against you. And that's when I was like, oh, you're right. And I have another job offer over here. Goodbye. Because our careers are bigger than the places where we are. We are scientists and we are scholars. We do good work. someone will want you. And I know that there's family constraints and geographic constraints, but trust me, do good work, people will want to hire you.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that the fact that you cannot grow in a toxic environment. And if you want to grow and move and do, then sometimes you have to make that decision. And yes, you know, there's geographical constraints, there's different things to take in consideration. But again, it's just then looking at the bigger picture. What do I need to do? Let me take a step back and see, you know, if give it a time frame and see, you know, if within a year this does not improve or so, then what's my next step? And see, because no one can grow in a toxic environment, whatever that could mean for anyone. It is, and sometimes you have to move from one place to another to flourish, and continue to do the beautiful work that I'm sure all of you are doing out there.
So I want to just conclude and say thank you very much to Kiki, Anitza, and all of our participants for this wonderful discussion. I know for me, I definitely learned a lot of actively having to prioritize your life over work, and not that norm that we all think of, like work being equal to life. So that was really powerful for me to really know that you really have to actively advocate for your life. And then also hearing to be present in the moment, I think was the other key thing that I got out of this. So again, thank you both to our speakers and our wonderful attendees. So I just want to conclude here quickly and invite our attendees to view our upcoming webinars. You can access these webinars by going to our website, sacnes.org/webinars. And I also invite you to attend our 2020 SACNAS National Conference, which this year will be fully virtual. So you have all of the great benefits at the comfort of your own home. So I highly encourage you to go to our website, 2020sacnes.org, and learn more about our virtual conference. And that concludes our webinar, everybody. Thank you again and have a wonderful day.